Hey, great to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about You, Season 5, and giving an overall review for that, as well as at the end, mentioning some overall season rankings for the entire series of You as well. So right off the bat, I didn't really like the direction You was headed in coming into Season 5. However, I was happy to see them return to the New York setting where the show began, and I hoped it would feel a little bit more grounded than what we got in the silliness of Season 4. We begin the season with Joe and his wife Kate reclaiming Joe's son, and then living somewhat of a lavish lifestyle in New York. Right from the start, Joe returns to his evil ways, killing off this guy named Bob in order to keep Kate and his secrets safe. We also get introduced to this new character named Bronte, who's stealing books from Joel's old bookstore that through Kate's magic he has also reclaimed. As expected, with pretty much the theme of every season of You, Joe gets a little bit too close to Bronte, and since this season's theme was coming full circle back to Season 1, I kind of saw where this was headed. Joe's son Henry shows some signs of violence toward the child of Kate's half-sister named Reagan. And in this season, we do the twin thing again, where one actor, Anna Camp from things like Pitch Perfect, plays a set of twins, so Reagan has a twin sister named Maddie. And I'm not really sure what's with this year as far as having actors play twin roles. We have it here, we have it in The Monkey, we have it in Sinners. It just seems like suddenly out of nowhere, everyone had the same idea to do one actor playing twin characters. Joe then goes to kidnap Reagan, and we get a fake out of somebody else breaking in. This felt a bit obvious to me though. We actually have Reagan's husband who's trying to do some foreplay, so he's not actually breaking into the home. We do get kind of a fun twist here where Maddie was actually having an affair with her sister's husband, and Joe accidentally kidnaps Maddie instead of Reagan. And it also turns out that Reagan's kid was actually Maddie's. Maddie actually birthed the child. Joe winds up getting closer to Bronte and tries to convince Maddie that if he lets her go, she must take on Reagan's identity. Reagan continues to threaten Kate and Joe, so in return, Joe goes and kidnaps the real Reagan this time, putting her in the same cell that Maddie's in. And then we have Reagan infuriate Maddie so much, constantly demeaning her, until Maddie actually decides to go through with Joe's plan and kill Reagan. Joe surprisingly lets Maddie out, and Maddie agrees to play the role of Reagan and do what Joe wants when it comes to their family's business. During all this, we have Joe meet Bronte's previous friend group, which her boyfriend is super rude to her, and we find out that Bronte is actually not her real name, it's actually Louise. Bronte and Joe wind up hooking up, and eventually Bronte tries to cut things off, but Joe shows up when Clayton, the ex-boyfriend, is being pretty aggressive with her. So Joe defends her here and actually winds up killing Clayton. And right as he does this, two other friends come in with a phone, and it seems they're actually live streaming all of this, pretty much leaving Joe caught red-handed here. Joe gets arrested but winds up getting let off. We find out what felt pretty obvious here, that Bronte was actually one of Beck, the girl from Season 1's, friends. She gives the police this big backstory, and we find out that the other three friends of hers, she actually met online through message boards of people that were angry with our justice system, and we find out Clayton actually was Dr. Nikki's son, so going back to Season 1 again, the guy who Joe framed in Season 1 for killing Beck, he is his son. Bronte eventually tells the cops she thought Joe was acting in self-defense, once again having somebody allured by Joe's charm. After all this, Kate pretty much abandons Joe and takes away his son. We get some fun cameos of characters from seasons past, like Paco, when Bronte's two friends try to dig up his past and have prior acquaintances of Joe talk about him online. Joe tries to revive his image publicly, and then later sees Bronte being attacked, stepping in and knocking out the kidnapper. Joe then leaves Bronte with her caged-up kidnapper, letting her decide ultimately what to do with him. Meanwhile, we have Kate, who heads over to London to talk to the girl that they framed from Season 4. Meanwhile, Reagan's husband eventually finds out that Maddie's been pretending to be here this whole time. They get a brief scene where Joe comes over and threatens to kill the husband if he talks, but ultimately doesn't wind up doing so. We have Bronte let her assailant go, but then Joe later kills him anyway, and we have Kate realize that Joe needs to die here. We subsequently have Joe realize that he wants to kill Kate, and he winds up framing both Maddie and Reagan's husband for killing Reagan. When trying to follow Kate though, he winds up falling into her trap and gets knocked out. Joe is then put in his cage to face all the women he's wronged that are still alive, so Kate, Bronte, Nadia, and Marianne. Somehow Joe put a key to the cage in his arm though, so he gets out and then shoots Kate. They lay on the ground defeated there, but then Bronte comes in and only saves Joe. And here's where the show kind of spirals in the final episode. I already watched the show with so much suspension of disbelief, but they drag things out here in such an unrealistic way. We have Joe and Bronte on the run together. We get the only character from the show that I actually like, Will from Season 2, try to help sneak them into Canada. Joe and Bronte break into a home for the night while they wait for their papers to cross the border to come through. They wind up taking a boat ride together and eventually hooking up. During this though, Bronte pulls a gun on Joe and makes him edit Beck's book, taking out all the parts that he added to the book. We have Joe's phone ring here, and it's Will letting him talk to his son, and she winds up letting him do that. But when Henry gets on the phone, he pretty much just calls Joe a monster. So with everything spiraling out of control around Joe, we have Bronte call the police, but Joe winds up shooting her and choking her out underwater, and now on the run in the woods with the cops chasing after him. Somehow Joe runs into Bronte, who takes Joe down. Joe is then taken to prison and humiliated in a pretty bizarre way. While we have Bronte survive and rewrite Beck's book without Joe's edits, Kate also somehow survives here and is living a great life, and pretty much every character that we still have alive other than Joe gets a happy ending here. Then we just end things off with Joe being in jail and reading fan mail and still being a monster. I personally thought that the ending felt pretty heavy-handed and completely unbelievable to me with both Kate and Bronte surviving. I think they would have been far better off ending the show around when Joe and Kate were in the bookstore burning down together. I did hear of an ending they almost went with of Joe being a ghost. The reception there would have been pretty interesting. So overall, the season, and honestly the show as a whole, has a lot of flaws. I did wind up enjoying the first half of Season 5 more than I thought it would. It just wound up spiraling down a pretty goofy direction that didn't work for me. For an overall season rating, I'm going to give Season 5 of You a 4 out of 10. It's slightly below average television for me and probably not something I'll return to. Joe is a character I never really liked. He was pretty creepy and not nearly as charismatic as someone like Dexter, but they did somehow make me slightly sympathetic towards him near the end of the show with all the piling on they did here. When it comes to an overall season ranking for the show, I already did an in-depth breakdown of seasons 1 through 4, so definitely check out that video if you're interested. But with the addition of season 5, I'll go with saying 2, 3, 1, 5, and 4 for my rankings. This season didn't quite recover from the disaster that season 4 was for me, but it fits nicely in 4th place here. What were your thoughts on season 5 of You, or just the show as a whole? Let me know what parts you either liked or disliked. Sound off on all things You in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.